Okay.
Okay.
Now.
Right.
Let's start. Now we've got we know from lots of nice translations which we have from the Tibetan Book of the Living and Dying that the Himalayan cultures went round and any opportunity they had, they interviewed people that had near-death experiences, asked them what their experiences were, and we have these texts now that are used to really educate and ease the so-called death experience for people. And you had an opportunity with one of your grandparents when it came to the point where they entered their death experience to, ease the path and be there and have what Nick was calling earlier a conscious death, or what Bert was saying was a conscious death, a death experience where it's a managed, loving kind of experience. Just go through that, and because it's very similar, you see, to these Himalayan texts.
This happened to my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
He was 92, and it was very obvious that he was going to die. And during the last days and hours of his life, I was there to guide him through this path.
Yeah.
And my grandfather never believed in God. He was an atheist like the rest of my family, and but he did have an open mind. So when time was there, I asked him, I said, Grandpa, do you mind if I tell you a little bit about what I believe, might be there, you might expect? And he said, yes, which surprised me, to be honest. And so I told him a little bit about, the life after death, the tunnel of light, images that you might see that it's better to ignore because you don't know what it is, and just focus on the light. And I just talked with him about this, and he seemed to be very interested. And so when the time was there, he very consciously passed over, and he very consciously and very peacefully closed his eyes. It was a very peaceful thing. And I remember burning a candle by his bed and saying, Grandpa, I'm going to light the candle for you to make things easier and, easier for you to go to the light. Just focus on the light, shoot to the light like an arrow, I said. And then he went. And it was a very peaceful event.
Now, I've got a question. When I said earlier that lighting these candles is something that's happening, it happens in the Indian subcontinent, the Himalayan civilizations. What usually happens is that in all the different houses of all the different relatives, they know that one of their relatives is going to go through the death experience. They all light a single candle in their houses. And this is called lighting the path, because the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying does have a section where it says that once the spirit has actually detached itself from the physical body, it usually goes on a kind of little tour of the houses and places where loved ones are. And by lighting a single candle in all these houses, it's more or less like you see a plane coming into land. There's all those lights there. It's like guiding you through, where you should be. When I said that earlier today, did you know that the Himalayan cultures were doing that?
No, I didn't. I didn't. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. And also, I had the experience to be exact, 2 days later. 2 days after my grandfather died, I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard a room in my living room. And sorry, I'll do that again. Okay. 2 days after my grandfather died, I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard a sound, a noise in the living room. And the door from my bedroom to my living room was open, and I saw this dim light flickering in the room, and I was looking like, oh, what is it? What is it? I thought it was somebody trying, with a torch, seeing if they could break in. So I jumped up and I ran into the living room to, say just bugger off. And obviously there was nobody there. But on my altar there was this little candle and it was lit. And I didn't light that. And there was nobody there.
And the light from that candle was the light that you perceived?
Yes. And the interesting thing was, what woke me up, that noise, was as if somebody bumped into the table. It was like, so I could hear somebody, there was somebody there. But I live alone, and there was nobody there at that time. I didn't have my pets. They couldn't have been, they couldn't have made the noise. So that was really weird. And the candle was there. And I mean, this is so physical. Mm-hmm. This is so tangible and so physical. And I knew instantaneously that it was my grandfather.
Yeah.
And I remember what happened was I saw the candle and I went like, oh, Opa.
There you go.
Which means grandpa.
Yeah.
I instantaneously knew, and it moved me so deeply. Yeah. And it was like a little sign saying, hey, it's okay, I made it. Yeah. I got to the light, thanks.
Yeah.
That was good.
Now, I want to ask you what your opinion is of all these lonely people that die not in this, atmosphere of knowledge, and they haven't got the benefit of any information, and we know that there are millions and millions of old people, and we all know the stories that we see in the papers where the newspapers haven't been collected for a long time, the milk is building up on the doorstep, and they find a person who's died all alone. What is your view on that kind of thing that we see more and more, as far as I'm concerned, in society?
I think it does. I think it doesn't have to be a problem to be on your own when you die. Of course, in society today, we have this individualization, so more and more people are completely isolated and on their own by the time they die. It doesn't have to be a bad thing, as long as you're conscious about it, as long as you know. I think as long as you've reached a certain emotional and spiritual level, it shouldn't be a problem. It doesn't have to be a problem. I don't believe that. But I do believe that if you do not have that consciousness, if you do not have that level of development or knowledge, so to speak, because you didn't read the source text, because you never opened up to other perspectives, or
out of your lower self.
Exactly. Then I think it is a problem. Yes.
Do you think that this is where perhaps we have these reports of ghosts and spirits hanging around? They don't know what.
Exactly. They don't have a clue what happened and where they are. There's this beautiful film, this movie with Nicole Kidman. What's the name again? With the two kids in that.
The Others.
The Others. My
That's
God, it's good. I loved it.
Have you seen that?
Oh, you must. It's very good. It's very, very good.
It's very, very spooky.
But I think that's exactly how I picture it. If you don't know that you're dead, then there's still the same reality, sort of, that you live in, with the same people, the same buildings, the same clothes. Everything is the same, and yet something doesn't add up. Because, for instance, you're being ignored, or there's something about the light that doesn't add up, or the time. You look at the watch and you think, it doesn't make sense. These spooky kind of things. Yeah. And I think that can really confuse a soul tremendously. And I think those souls have been caught in between worlds, in twilight zones, or whatever name you wish to give it. And I don't think that's a nice thing. No.
It's not good because they haven't moved on. And
exactly.
They haven't found peace.
They haven't found peace.
Now, the last question I've got then ties in with all the research which you and Bert have been doing, really diligently, and I'm, very impressed with the way both of you have just persevered with this crop circle phenomenon. What do you think about the theories that some of these balls of light are actually spirits? I remember seeing a lecture at the Glastonbury Crop Circle Symposium where I think it was Karen Douglas. She'd read, I think it was the Egyptian pyramid texts, and they said that the spirits of some of the dead can be seen sometimes as orbs of light.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I want to do this as a question, as the last question, is because you've both been taking photographs over the years. You both had these orbs of light on many photographs. Tonight you took photographs and there were orbs there clearly outside the house. Do you think it's possible that we're surrounded by these spirits, and just with a photograph sometimes you actually capture a spirit and it's in the form of a sphere? Do you think it's possible that these are spirits?
Absolutely. I'm convinced. It took me quite a long time to come to this opinion or to this conclusion, because I have a more left-brain background, scientific background, so I found it very difficult to believe in things like this. And also in the family that I grew up in, nobody ever talked about these things. Nobody believes in these things. So as far as I was concerned, they simply weren't there because, it wasn't real. But after now about 12 years of crop circle research, I have come to the conclusion, yes, that these lights, at least part of them, some of them, are those kind of spirits, and part of them are other kind of entities as well. I mean, I believe that there are nature divas working on the formations, most definitely. I believe there are angelic beings working on those formations. I think it's partly human souls that are cooperating, collaborating to make this phenomenon happen.
And we're picking them up.
Absolutely.
On our digital cameras,
Absolutely.
mostly as these kinds of orbs.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the start of a whole new development in this orb phenomenon, side phenomenon, is that when I was in Australia last November to give lectures about the crop circles, during one of the lectures of a co-speaker, I took a couple of photographs, and on one of them is an orb, but the orb contains a face, a very clear face, and it's definitely an alien face. I will give you the photograph. It looks a bit like a grey, but with an elongated head, like the Egyptians drew them, the cones. And it doesn't really have it does have the big black eyes, but not totally like this. A bit more flat, almond shaped, but a bit more flat instead of like this, like the greys. So it's not a grey. And it had a very friendly energy to it. And I've seen other photographs of orbs with faces in them.
I've heard stories of
Yes.
2 people at Silbury Hill that saw a little orb and it came up to the level of
Yes.
them, and they saw a little face in that as well.
Well, yeah, that actually contained an entire entity that even
That's
stepped
right.
out of the orb. And mine doesn't go that far, but it is definitely an orb. And it's an alien face.